Nerd Talks.
Welcome back to Nerd Talks, the relaunch. Yay! Woohoo! I'm here with my co-host today, Mason.
Hello.
Today in the relaunch, we're going to start slow. We're going to start over, wind it back a little bit, and we're just going to talk about nerds in general. What makes us nerds? Who's a nerd? Why are we nerds? And what happened to the nerds over time here? So without dragging our feet about it, what would you say is a nerd?
I truthfully at this point, I think it's just anyone who's super passionate about a certain topic at this point. That's like, I wouldn't say necessarily a mainstream thing, but a lot of the nerd stuff now is mainstream. So just someone who's super passionate about something that they like, you know? Like you can be a nerd about race cars. Obviously, that's not your traditional nerd, but, you know, I think they call them gearheads.
True. Yeah. A lot of, other nerds have subtypes, we'll say.
Yeah, for sure.
There's other ones, weebs, too.
Mm-hmm. They love anime.
Yeah, type of nerd. But I think the more general nerd is someone who's passionate about some kind of usually intellectual property or a specific topic. Usually in our case, it's some kind of sci-fi or fantasy or something adjacent to those.
For sure.
And everything has changed, from when I was a kid and I was a nerd. So in the early aughts, when I was a wee lad, it was fine being a nerd. But then there's this point where you get, I think, I don't know if it happens so much anymore. I think it happens less now than maybe it did in the 2000s or maybe even in the 90s, where it was like social suicide almost to come out and be a nerd in public.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hollywood definitely shows you that too, where they got these shows like sitcom takes place in the 90s, nerd right in the locker.
Yeah. And it's just like if you're into comic books, playing card games or Dungeons and Dragons, right in the locker with you. You're shunned by anyone who thought they were cool and or popular. And when I was young, it was like, for a while, didn't care. Mm-hmm. So I was 6 to 10 years old and I'm just playing Pokemon. And then you get into like middle school age and it's like, wow, I can't join the D&D group, the D&D club at school. Otherwise, I might get shoved in a locker.
Or worse. Which there's two things that I've seen happen to nerds. One of them is obviously the locker shove where they just go in the locker. But I think the worst outcome is the swirly head right in the toilet. Yeah.
I've never had a swirly, but yeah, in many a show, I have seen the nerd with glasses get shoved into a stall for a good old fashioned swirly.
Oh, for sure.
I don't even know if people
I hope
kids,
they don't.
Kids these days even know what a swirly is.
A lost relic.
A lost relic. Shoving a kid's head into a toilet.
And then flushing it.
Yeah. But that brings me, I guess, to, well, there was a point where I then stopped caring kind of later in high school. And then just altogether didn't care anymore. Where it was just, whatever, I'm just going to do what I want to do. I'm just going to be who I am. And I think that happens to a lot of people. And there's also not just a social suicide kind of aspect, really, where it's just like you may be thinking it's damaging people's outlook on you, but also there's a point where you get to high school and it's just the social aspect of just hanging out with people. And not everyone you hang out with might be a dedicated nerd as oneself, where you just don't end up doing as much as that kind of activity.
Yeah, definitely.
So that brings me to the turning point. We almost started speaking about it before we started recording.
Oh, yeah.
So the turning point, I think, is a time and period, and I think there's a couple of sub turning points where it's like small pieces that kind of push us in a direction. But I think there's also one main point where it really just allowed people who were nerds or nerd adjacent to kind of come out and not hold back anymore or kind of hide it from anyone. They kind of just started like coming out of the woodwork, and those that weren't nerds turned to nerds. So I'm curious to hear where you think the turning point was.
Oh, okay. So I know when we were talking, you had mentioned a very specific movie, and I think there is a movie that like really opened it up, and it might just be because I'm a little younger, but I think it was actually the first Avengers movie that really pushed it over the scale. Okay. For just like nerds abroad. Obviously, I have one that I'll get into later, deeper, with just one of my specific nerdoms. But yeah, I think like first the portrayal of the way like some superheroes were seen on screen. They're no longer like these tidy whitey underwear looking nerds. Like I love Batman, but early Batman looks stupid. Okay, he's wearing tidy whities. Robin's wearing tidy whities. The Joker is just a crackhead. Like, it's just wild. But yeah, we get to like some of the first movies like Iron Man where they start portraying him as like, oh no, there's like actual like coolness behind this. Like Iron Man's not just a nerd who has money and a suit. He's like a guy with real emotions and there's intent. And I think that's just from movies getting better, but it also like it opened people's eyes to be like this. You know, you don't gotta make fun of someone for like it's like this is pretty cool to watch. You know, right. Guy with an electro whip was pretty cool. Iron Man 2. So,
yeah, and yeah, I guess Avengers maybe is a better spot. 2012 is when Avengers launched, and I suppose maybe that is the actual turning point as far as nerd culture turning more to pop culture.
Yeah,
and I think that's really what the turning point is, right? Is where it goes from being kind of these behind the scenes things to kind of all out there. Like Iron Man's been a popular character in the comics for years, but did anyone really know about Iron Man before 2008 and RDJ was on screen?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, I don't think so. But then you really put them together and you kind of get this movie that not only changes people's outlook on comic books and superheroes, the Avengers that is, but it also changes cinema where you've taken and you've built this story over several different movies that aren't just, and no offense, but James Bond 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
It's Iron Man and Captain America and Hulk. And then you throw them in this movie together and you've been kind of building this. And really comics have been doing it for years, really is what happened there. It's basically just comic book storytelling in a movie. But I do think there's other turning points, and I think maybe the Avengers is maybe the defining turning point for, like I said, nerd culture to pop culture. But I think there's video games as well, where it wasn't just like nerds playing video games. And I think Halo is really the game that moved people from not just, Mario and, these other like, Pokemon and maybe more like RPGs and nerd centric like games and PC gaming. And Halo is really, I think, the game that just like, everyone in your school was playing it. Like,
almost. I missed the initial wave of Halo.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the first 3 Halos, and you were just like, everyone was just like, every time, midnight, GameStop, and just everyone was there. It was like, what are we even doing? But,
for sure. Yeah, I've played 0 Halo whatsoever when it comes to like actually sitting down and playing the game. I've played about maybe 30 minutes total across any amount of Halo games.
Fair.
So, I couldn't tell you too much about Halo. I don't even know when Halo launched, to be perfectly honest. I might have been like 2 or 4 when it came out. And, midnight pre-releases for like games being packed, I've never seen. But I think that's just because by the time I would have ever done one of those, and when I was 10, it would have been 2012. Like, by that point, we had Avengers, and there was already this turning point of, oh man, it's okay to be a nerd.
Hmm.
So,
yeah, Halo came out in 2001. Just
I wasn't even born. I couldn't have had Halo.
Okay, well, we can talk about some of the other turning points that you were around for. One that maybe, I guess I'll let you lead this one because you're maybe more in tune to it. But what do you think about trading card games?
Oh, perfect. That's the one I wanted to talk about. So, probably my favorite card game of all time. I really love Pokemon. No shun to that. But Magic the Gathering. It released, I think it was like 93. It's alpha, somewhere around there, right? Yeah. Early 90s. Sure. Game comes out. There's this big like controversy over it. There's always those moms against whatever. There's moms against Magic. They're always against something. And that was like the big controversy. And then it kind of goes away. And then there's this format that's created, and I think it's 2006 is the origin of the format. It's called Commander. It's the most popularly played Magic nowadays. Where you get 4 of your buddies, you all build a deck with a guy at the helm, and you play your game. And you can kind of play it like a beer and pretzels format, like a get together, like people would do with football and whatnot. And then it slowly garners interest on, I wouldn't say anything like really big until we hit the year 2018, where there's a few podcasts that come out, and one of them has a gameplay series. And for the first time, you see someone who is a mainstream figure in Cassius Marsh, who's a former NFL player. And I think that's when Magic really got its I don't want to credit him too much because I don't think he necessarily is the greatest figure for who we should be spotlighting as a person who plays the game. I think Post Malone is probably the better option of the 2 major ones that we have. But I think those two really like being on a show. So I think Cassius first makes an appearance in like 2018, right around that period.
Sounds about right.
And that's what popularizes the Commander format even more, and people playing Magic in general. But Post Malone really was the one that like knocked everything up into the stratosphere for Magic. Like now we have our crossover IPs, which they were already experimenting with, but now we have a ton of them. He's had his own.
He does have his own.
There are people who watch shows about Magic just to see him and his intake. So like we have also now these people who, instead of being a closeted nerd, are now out there talking about, hey, I like playing this trading card game, and I'm sure we'll get into it in a second, but like even people like Henry Cavill who play in superhero movies, they love Warhammer, World of Warcraft, like they are the closet nerd that we used to have that is now just a mainstream figure. And there are women who do not have interest in these whatsoever, but they have interest in Henry Cavill. So like even they know about it.
Right.
So I think those are the big turning points for trading card games, is when the celebrities actually started admitting like, hey, we do these things. Yeah. And it started like humanizing them a little more to the rest of us. Yeah.
And we got one more turning point here, but just on the fact of just speaking on the celebrities, I think that helped also for a lot of this stuff. We had the turning points we already spoke on, but Post Malone is a great example, I think. Cassius Marsh too, obviously, but I think a lot more people are in tune with Post Malone.
For sure. Yeah.
And him kind of coming into the space and coming out as someone who's played Magic. I feel like he's the type of person who played Magic when he was younger and then stopped, did his music thing, and then like got over the big hype that he was. I mean, he's still like super popular, but he had that initial like launch where he was huge and kind of settled down, started playing Magic again. Especially if you have, or if you're just printing money, you can just do it.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But Henry Cavill is another great one where you see him in movies and stuff, and then he kind of comes out admitting that he plays Warhammer. And then from then on, he just continuously is just like an advocate for nerds. I feel like he plays Superman to a T. I love the new Superman movie, but I think Henry Cavill was killing it as Superman. And then The Witcher, I think is where we all stood behind Henry Cavill. If you don't know what happened with The Witcher, he was a huge fan. Do you know The Witcher series?
I know there's a video game series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it's like a monster hunter, right?
Yep.
So he is in love with this IP. He loves The Witcher. He's played the games. He gets to be the main character for the show on Netflix. The reason he is no longer that that lead on that show is because of creative differences.
Oh.
Basically, he was telling them, let's stick to the source material, and they didn't want to.
Got it.
And then that's how he kind of got pushed out of that position. It's because they wanted to do kind of their own thing, and Henry Cavill really wanted to stick to the source material. And, you know, there's not, you know, I would say there's a lot of people that can get angry about things. And I would say people who watch the NFL are like right here. And, you know, most other people are right here. So let's say football watchers or any, I guess, sport watchers are like right here in how passionate they are about watching their sport and how excited and or angry they get. But I don't think anyone can beat the nerd when they're annoyed with a property.
For sure. I mean, there's a whole show about it. They've spun off, and I love Dropout TV, and actually is probably the biggest example of this.
The thousands of people, probably tens of thousands. I would not doubt that there's tens of thousands of people that flocked to the internet in rage behind like Henry Cavill to back him up. Just like, why can't you do it?
Yeah.
why not stick to the source material?
For sure.
But yeah, there's all kinds of things amongst the celebrities. And the other kind of sphere, I would say, of that is role-playing games. Where role-playing games, I feel like, is maybe the most, or was at one point the most closeted of the nerd. And I don't think the Satanic Panic helped with that.
Definitely not.
That definitely drove some people to do it behind closed doors. But then also just the dedication to learning and playing the game is pretty high. Considering that, you know, for trading card games, it's maybe like an hour or two where you sit down and play this game, compared to role-playing games where people will sit down for 2, 3, 4 hours on average. But there are other people who play the game for 6, 8, 10 hours in one sitting. And I think the turning point for role-playing games was the pandemic, unfortunately. It left a lot of people divided in their houses. I shouldn't say divided, isolated in their homes. And there was a lot of stuff going on online that you could watch, particularly like Critical Role or Dimension 20, where they had these setups that allowed them to play even during, you know, kind of after the initial pandemic wave, where we could get back to work, but not necessarily be that close to each other.
Yeah.
And people began watching this, and this is when Critical Role really exploded. Dimension 20 and all of Dropout, I think, kind of followed on the tail of Dimension 20 at that point.
Oh, for sure.
Where it blew up and everyone was kind of okay playing these games. And now, you know, role-playing games has its own celebrities behind it. I'm trying to think of who he is. But he's another, like, you know, handsome gentleman who was kind of in a lot of action movies or just kind of in movies in general, and came out as a huge D&D nerd. But I cannot think of his name. Oh my goodness. He's Flash Thompson in the original Spider-Man. He plays Deathstroke for like 20 seconds in Justice League. All right. You gotta do a
Google break.
Yep.
Oh, definitely, for sure.
Joe Manganiello.
Who?
Joe Manganiello.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen him in some stuff before.
Yeah.
And like, he can't have that many abs. That can't be a real picture. He's definitely bronzed up or something, because that's wild.
But yeah, so he was in Magic Mike. He was in.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But he's been in several things. True Blood, I guess. Magic Mike. How I Met Your Mother. Various things. But one of his credits here, as I'm just kind of looking at him, is Critical Role, where he hops on the actual live role-playing game, and he's in there for at least a couple of episodes. And he's playing, you know, and at that point, this is probably one of the biggest celebrities that they have. It's in their first season, which is one of the seasons that's not watched by a lot of people, but his presence on the show, I think, elevated their show to kind of take that next step up. And since then, they've had numbers of individuals come on the show and play. And I think from there, we kind of got the okay to play role-playing games. And now there's, I mean, at the store, I run 2 nights. One of those nights has an average number of players. The other night has...
It's a roller coaster.
Almost 10 people playing the game, which is too much if you don't know. But I think, you know, the turning point there for all of those. And I think the Avengers, I think, solidifies the initial... Again, Halo was in 2001, but I think that's just for the video game portion where I think it became okay for people to play games. Mm-hmm. But I think the Avengers might be the defining turning point where nerd culture went to pop culture.
For sure. There's actually one that I was thinking about when you were talking about people being put on a D&D podcast, or not a podcast, a show. And I just thought about it that recently WWE had a crossover with Dropout, which it's pretty major because like there are a ton of eyes on WWE. There are people who love WWE, right? But they're wrestling nerds. And when I mean like wrestling nerds, I don't mean like they're nerds who love
wrestling,
like anything other than wrestling. They're just all in on wrestling. And then other than that, they're just a guy you'd see buying milk at like Walmart. Like they're all in on wrestling. That's their nerdom. The rest of it is like casual person stuff who's like, I got a car, I drive to work.
Sure.
And so another thing too, like they had, there's a guy there who I think could probably also be credited by helping like bring people from at least that side of the nerd spectrum all the way across. His name's Austin Creed, wrestles under Xavier Woods. Okay. He ran a show called Up, Up, Down, Down that the WWE popularized. They put it on their network when they ran their network. They have made it its own YouTube channel. They let him run it. The rest of his tag team partners, known as Big E and Kofi Kingston, just kind of, they played video games and they broed out. They eventually like were even more outspoken about how much nerds they are, but like initially just started with them being like video gamers. Mm-hmm. And so I think that too also like helped get people across the bridge. So like, you know, it's okay to watch UFC. Oh, we could watch like WWE. And then you see that there's like the people that are doing these things, like going through a table and whatnot on their free time is just like playing Street Fighter competitively. And you're like, okay, sure. Yeah. Another one could be like Kenny Omega too. Obviously, he's never stepped foot in WWE, but he's a big outspoken advocate. This guy who wrestled in Japan for a long time, loves Street Fighter, probably is that. And he also really likes Final Fantasy. Okay. Most of his stuff is based around Final Fantasy. His finishing move is called the One-Winged Angel, and for those who don't know, is Sephiroth. Okay. So
nice.
Yeah, there's tons of bridges that I think have been made connections to, all from these turning points.
Oh yeah. And I think WWE is a huge one. Always seeing them doing stuff in the, role-playing games and trading card games, video games as well.
Oh, of course. And another thing too is like they brought in someone who I never thought I'd see for that D&D episode, and like someone who just does not strike you as a nerd, and like she'd clearly never played WWE before, or she's in WWE. She's never played D&D before.
Sure.
Stupid 3-letter acronyms.
Sure.
But yeah, she seemed to enjoy it. So like even now they're bringing in new celebrities to these things that are like putting more eyes on it. So even now I think it's getting bigger and it's continuing to get bigger. I don't think it's ever going to stop.
There's a huge wave. This is totally off topic, but it's on topic slightly. There's a huge wave of people that want a particular WWE wrestler to portray Storm from X-Men.
Jade Cargill.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know about this?
So she started in AEW because WWE didn't give her the shot initially, and AEW they gave her the ball and let her run with it. She came in with Shaquille O'Neal. That was who she debuted with. Okay. Shaquille O'Neal. And she wrestles the face of the company, who was Cody Rhodes at the time. And Shaq goes through a table. Like this first match is wild. Honestly, if you got the time, you should go and watch it. But yeah, Shaq goes through a table, and they just let her have the ball. Oh yeah, sure.
Sorry, I definitely want to hear about this. But did someone pick Shaq up?
Like
you said, he went through a table. Did someone pick him up to throw him?
No. Someone jumps at Shaq and like dives at him and knocks him over, and they all go through the table. This is a fun spot. Okay. But yeah, like Shaq's appeared in WWE before, but like Shaq he's never been in a match. So like this was a match with Shaq, and you're giving it to this person that no one's ever heard of. So like now she's got a name, right? And then on top of that, they let her go on a 50-0 run, just Just like Goldberg, just big undefeated streak. They give her a title in halfway through. They introduce a new title, and she's given it. And eventually she loses it, right? And after she loses it, she goes over to WWE. She gets the better contract, right? Now she's there. She's killing it. She just won their women's title. She's been there for maybe a year at the most. And she's already top of the line person, right? And one of her things is I think she used to be like a triathlete. So she used to do like triathlons and whatnot. Like she's built.
Yeah.
And they're not just show muscles anymore. No one can argue that like, oh, she just uses them to get looks, right? She's clearly putting them to work.
Yeah.
Like I've seen some things. And another thing too is she all this time has constantly had dyed hair. So for a little bit she had it green, but most of the time she has it dyed white, like Storm.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the largest comparison comes from. Like she's already like a pretty good looking female. She's built like a superhero. She's got and this is to her own account. She likes to draw a line down the middle of her to show people how symmetrical she is. Weird thing that she does, but whatever. And then she's got the white hair. So like she's got almost everything you should ask for a person playing Storm. And I think they should go with it. But also on that same note, have you seen everyone who's been like, man, we need Shane Top as Booster Gold?
Shane Top as Booster Gold.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
That's another fan cast that's been circulating.
I have not seen this.
That's another one you should look up. That's pretty
wild.
good.
Wild.
Yeah.
And I mean, even bringing around, bringing it full circle, we have John Cena as like
Peacemaker.
Yeah. He's almost like the face of this new DC we have running here because he's the only canon character they brought from the previous DC to the new DC before they just said that everything else.
It's a shame you can't see him though. That's my least favorite part about this whole Peacemaker thing is I can't ever see him on TV.
Well, if he's got the helmet on, you can see the helmet floating around.
That's fair. That's
ridiculous.
He's never getting away from that.
He's really not.
No.
I love the story about it too. It's just nonsense.
Yeah. But yeah, we had like someone like John Cena, someone you'd never expect to be playing a superhero. Like he lived in pretty much WWE land. He was the WWE guy. Kids loved him. He does Make-A-Wishes, right? But you never think, oh man, that guy's going to be an actor who's carrying one of the flags for nerds and being like, I am someone who's doing something nerdy who I'm built. I'm like a jacked guy. Normally those two things, pre-turning point.
In his WWE, wrestling persona was not even like.
Oh, it was
related.
just a guy. Yeah. Just a man.
It was not even related.
He had a pair of jorts and he was invisible.
And now he runs around with a helmet in his whitey tighties on one of the most popular superhero TV shows.
And he's still invisible. So yeah, it's great. But yeah, there've been plenty of people who do those crossovers. Like we've seen wrestlers in acting before.
For sure.
But none of them have had like the nerd stanchion that I think now is truly being portrayed. Yeah. There's just so many celebrities making the crossover now, and I think that is probably one of the main accelerants.
Yeah, and there's a part of me that's like the first, couple of years of it was definitely genuine people coming out of the woodwork saying I used to do these things or I played D&D behind the set. There's a Deborah Ann Wall. She's from Daredevil. She does a lot of role playing online, and she was one of the people that would be like, "Yeah, I would play behind the scenes and stuff like that." But at this point, now that nerd culture has turned to pop culture, and we are like the majority here, it's like some of these guys, it's like, "Are you really a nerd, though?"
For sure.
At this point.
And I don't think I ever want to call anyone a bandwagon for the nerd thing. I want everyone to get on the nerd bandwagon.
For sure. Absolutely.
But I think there are some people who've had their nerd awakening just a little later than they should have, all because we have these spotlights. They've been like, oh man, I think this person's really attractive. And they look at like D&D and they play D&D and they no longer care about how attractive this person was. They're like, man, I got to roll a nat 20 to seduce the dragon or something,
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about the future here for us? In the last couple of years, some of our biggest nerd properties have been getting, some negative reviews maybe, and maybe not in some of the more pocketed portions of our whole nerddom here, like Magic the Gathering, which I think has had a lot of people flock to it, but I would say there's also maybe there's an equal amount of people who are upset about all of the crossovers, and I would have to say probably only a quarter of those people are actually mad, where most of those people are like, I wish they would stop doing the crossovers, and then buys the new stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But then I think there's these extremely large properties, and maybe it's something behind the scenes to hate Disney, but I would have to say, there's, Marvel and Star Wars both, which are huge properties, have kind of been getting targeted heavily. And I think DC also got that before they did the relaunch. And we're still kind of waiting to see how that all turns out, I think. And then Harry Potter, I think, is the newest one to kind of start getting dogged on because we've told the original story and now we're going to retell it again with creative freedom.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what you think about, I guess, all of that. Are they being targeted, do you think, rightfully? Or just, do you think it's just the thing to do at this point? Or
I think criticism at its root has a reason to be there. And I'll speak on Magic the most because that's one I'm most knowledgeable on, right? There's obviously a root to criticism. And initially when they were doing the whole crossovers things, when they first started, it started with The Secret Lair. Walking Dead was the first biggest contention point. And when that came out, I was like, Walking Dead's not for me. Never has been. Mm-hmm. Not a scary guy. And they released a scary guy product, and the cards were cool. I didn't like that they were locked behind Secret Lair, but it was, print to order. Some people can't order it online, like people in the Magic space. And this was at the beginning of the turning point. Just to put in, I think it was 2018, 2019 when they first do it. Mm-hmm. And people were upset because unlike it being a normal set, you had to get this during its certain window or you can never get it again. And now some of those cards are hard to find. And at the time, one of them was talked about being played competitively. So there was an uproar from the competitive players, from the people who were just getting into it for Commander. But it also brought a new light to the game. So I wasn't too upset about it because people who like The Walking Dead who maybe never heard Magic, they now, maybe I'll look at these things. Maybe I'll just get the cards because I like Walking Dead, but maybe I'll learn to play the game too. Mm-hmm. And that being the first sticking point, I didn't really care too much because Wizards later came out and said, hey, we will print these as normal Magic cards in Magic Universe. It's just going to take a little bit for us to get there because they plan things out, in case anyone didn't know, a year and a half, almost 2 years in advance sometimes. Mm-hmm. And then slowly down the line, they started introducing more and more IPs. And one of the biggest next sticking points, I think, was Lord of the Rings getting its whole set instead of it just being something like a Secret Lair or just a side expansion, right? This was a whole main expansion. It's going right into a format that people kind of love. It's kind of dead now. No one really plays Modern anymore. For sure. But yeah, that was the next biggest point. And at that point, I was still I don't know which side of the fence I'm going to be on. I was still kind of riding it, going I like Lord of the Rings, but at the same time, I can see why people are upset, but the cards are cool. So I was still riding the fence. And then we get to the most recent block, this 2025 block, where they've announced the 2026 season. And at this point, I'm kind of fed up. I'm we're not getting enough Magic sets. These are all just now we got Spider-Man set, and now we're having an Avatar set, and now we're going to get one Magic set, and this immediately back Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which happens in 2026. And at first, my idea was I'm mad. It's not Magic. I want it to be Magic. And I was definitely doing that old fogey thing of I want it to be Magic. But now looking back at, we've had the Avatar and the Marvel set release for Spider-Man. My view has completely shifted to the other side. I couldn't care less if they make another one. It brings new people to the game. It's probably the biggest one. It's bringing, and while sure there's some old heads in the game who are gonna be but it's not Magic. So what if it's not Magic? The cards are still Magic the Gathering cards. The game's still Magic the Gathering. They were going to do stuff like this, maybe not with Spider-Man, but they might have released a spider plane down the line. It would have been close enough to Spider-Man that people would have pretended that it was Spider-Man when they're playing. So I don't care.
Just make the proxies. People do this too, where they'll have a card and they'll be this is close enough to what I think Spider-Man would do in the game. And then they just draw on the card.
Yeah,
Spider-Man
and they draw Spider-Man, yeah. So at this point, I no longer care because now it opens up more doors for me to maybe one day I'll have Pikachu on a Magic card and I'll be gung ho to play Pikachu the Magic card. I don't know, probably not. But
that's not gonna happen.
Hey, crazier things have happened, literally. Yeah, so that's like point number one for that is like it brings new people to it, so I'm not too upset about it. The second thing is honestly, I was just talking about this with our boss that he was looking at like Spider-Man and how bad of a set it was when you look at it from a competitive player standpoint. The set was bad, even from like a casual Magic player standpoint, solely outside of Commander. That set was not great either. There's no like super big powerhouse cards. There's nothing like in Final Fantasy we had VV Ornatier, who everyone was freaking out about in Commander, which ended up just being a flop in anywhere but Standard, Cubes, like anywhere but Commander, it was actually a legitimate concern. But in Commander, you're like, whatever, you guys freaked out for nothing. They didn't have that in Spider-Man, and we go to look at the set and like retroactively, him for his business perspective, but like I brought up the point that like it's lower, but like maybe new players can on board with it. And then he gets thinking, he's like, maybe that was the reason they made it such a low power set is because they know it's going to bring people into the game. It's going to bring kids into the game, and they don't have a great on ramp for kids anymore. Magic used to have something called the Junior Super Series, brought kids into the game. They don't have that anymore. So maybe they do like Marvel Spider-Man, kids love Spider-Man. If we make it a low power set, it'll be easy for them to learn the game and then get in. So I think that's another great thing, that if that's the true intention behind it, and maybe it's an accidental mistake, like they didn't intend for that to happen, but that's how it's becoming. Is that
for sure
these become like the beginner sets, we'll say. I think that's cool. And so like those are the two big things that really changed my mind about it, instead of me being like, oh man, it's not a Magic set for like the Magic purposes. Now the actual like Magic thing that changed my mind about it was there's a pro player's named Andrea Mengucci who put out a statement, and I think this encompassed like why I was so upset at it the most from a Magic standpoint, is that they weren't taking aim at their competitive game anymore that they had focused on for so long to make a good competitive game. They had switched to the Commander mindset, which is fine, it makes them money, but they weren't like, the rest of the game was kind of falling apart because they weren't tending to it anymore. The thing about Commander was it was supposed to be you build within this box, and like, oh man, they released this cool thing, they didn't intend for it to be good, but now it's good in Commander. That was like where Commander originated. That's not where we were anymore. We were in, oh man, we're going to design this thing for Commander, and it's going to be good. Like Deflecting SWAT and Fierce Guardianship, that's the other one. So they were designing things like that, and like we get to a point now, which those happened in like I think those were also 2018, 2019. It was a wild time then.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 2018, 2019, 2020 was
for Magic. Wild time. Dominated Standard, blue-green, best colors. We had Uro and Oko, two busted Magic cards. We're out in Commander land, just printing whatever we want. But in the 2025 realm of scope things, it's looking at it. They didn't care about competitive play anymore, at least from a design standpoint, is what it seemed like. And he was like, I don't care if you make Spider-Man cards. I don't care if you make Final Fantasy. I don't care about it could be My Little Pony cards in Standard. And I don't care about the IP. I care that the game is fun and good to play. And I think that's truly where after hearing that, I was like, you know what? Yeah, that is probably the thing that was upsetting me the most, is the game is just not fun to play when you only care about certain things. Just make a good game. Yeah. Let us play how we were going to play.
I think that translates to a lot of our other, IPs. I started with Marvel and Star Wars here, as far as them looking on negatively. And I think Harry Potter and DC kind of follow those two up. But I think they could follow the same sentiment as you're speaking to, where I think for Star Wars, it's a big lore thing and accurateness to what the original movies were, and instead of maybe worrying about those movies in trying to fit into that box of like, all the movies need to be like this, let them expand, let them have other ideas. I don't know if you know about the show The Acolyte. Okay, so the Acolyte was taken out of the time frame that we're used to. We're used to this, I'll just say offhand, 50-year span where the original movies all take place. I should say the original movies, the prequels, and then the sequels as well, and all of the other little sub movies that are in between there, as well as all of the
TV shows. Be closer to like 75. Not to be too semantic about it, but that Star Wars range is probably like 75 years, right?
Something like that. Yeah. So, and all those movies kind of take place in that time range, and then we made the Acolyte, which takes place 1,000 years before, whatever the original movies or the prequels or whatever they said. And they took a lot of liberties at doing kinds of things, and they kind of showed us things that we never seen before. Jedi doing hand-to-hand combat, them actually bleeding a lightsaber on screen, going from fucking spoilers, I guess. Sorry, bleeding a lightsaber, and actually showing. I'm not actually telling you any plot points, but these are just things that they did there. Bleeding a lightsaber, if you don't know what that is, it's when a Jedi turns Sith and their lightsaber turns with them. It's how you get the red crystals, because you're bleeding the original crystal. Let's say it's blue. You're bleeding that blue crystal and it becomes red because it's infused with the dark power that you are taking on. This is the first time we've ever seen this happen on screen. We've seen plenty of red lightsabers, but never transform the lightsaber. And for this, for me, I was like, this is amazing, because we've never seen some of these things happen before. We're seeing characters and things that we've never seen before. And it gives a backdrop to these movies where you can see how they affect these movies. But for some reason, it got hate bombed, hate reviewed, and they canceled it almost immediately. They spent a lot of money making it, so that was also an issue for them. But I think it was maybe one of their best shows, other than, probably everyone loves Andor, but other than Andor, it might be one of their best shows. I think definitely better than Boba Fett. It might be better than The Mandalorian.
I think Ahsoka's better than The Mandalorian. I think that's gonna be it.
Ahsoka was a good show too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much backlash I'm gonna personally get for that, but like, I don't care. I think Ahsoka's better than The Mandalorian.
I think The Mandalorian was a great show.
Yeah,
I think it was
sure.
a good show for them to kind of launch this new kind of era of TV shows, and give them like a good starting point where we didn't have to focus on characters that we already knew.
Yeah,
and so I think for that point it was really great. But I do have to agree. I think Ahsoka was also better. Ahsoka was fantastic. But Ahsoka also got hate. That show also did get some hate.
Yeah,
and it's just like, for what? These and going back to what you said about magic, we don't have to compare this to every other property that came before. We need to take this movie or this show as it is and look at it. Is it good? Does it actually have good writing, or do you just saying it has bad writing? Because a lot of the time people are like, it has bad writing. But it's like, well, are you a real film critic, or are you just some person on the internet getting mad because it didn't link up to this or have this character in it,
For sure. And I think there's something to be said about Pierce in the nerd culture. And like, don't get me wrong, there's a space where Henry Cavill can be mad about The Witcher, and when they're like, they're trying to do too much. They're like, you can be mad about that. But then when they're just like, what if we go A+1 instead of going from A to Y,
Right, yeah.
Then it's different. Like, you can be mad when they're trying to go A to Y, and it just doesn't make sense. But if they're trying to go like A+1 and they're trying to like expand it a little, be like, let's add another layer or something. Like, I think people get a little too upset when they're like, it's not the original. And like,
and I think that's exactly Star Wars, exactly. And then Marvel's on a little bit of a different track, where I think, phases 1 through 3 were so tight. They were so tight knit in their storytelling, and we were really telling this pure saga where everything was really combined. And when we got to 5, people were great with the TV shows at first, but then we did start to get a lot all at one time. Similar to Magic, but as we move into the phase 4 and phase 5, they get a lot of hate. And there's like a lot of writing issues and what's wrong with the writing here. And I think that we need to step back and look at each movie individually, and kind of just take one movie as it is, instead of trying to say that this whole saga needs to have everything connected, or it needs to be like the first phase. I have a whole thing that I could go on for the MCU, which I'll do another time. But
for sure.
I think we need to just kind of step back and look at everything, and stop trying to compare everything to everything else, and just enjoy what we have in the moment.
For sure.
Because eventually, what is, and we could say this about DC, where we were being so critical about some of the things they were doing. Some of the things we were doing were really wild.
That's true.
But some of the things, we were being so critical about, and then we lost it. And there was a point where, people think that, Ben Affleck is the Batman. They think that is the best Batman. I don't. But they think that that's the best Batman. And we lost that now.
Yeah.
You lost that. You lost Henry Cavill as the Superman. And I think he was a fantastic Superman.
For
Is
sure.
the new Superman better? That's to say yet. But, and then, speaking on, wrestlers turned actors, we had Black Adam.
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be a crossover for Black Adam. Superman shows up in that movie at the end in the post-credit scene. Spoiler for that, but it's like a 3-year-old movie.
Yeah.
You know, and they were eventually, theoretically, Black Adam goes at it with Superman. And that Henry Cavill as Superman and The Rock as Black Adam, that we're just printing money, right?
100%.
Are we not just all watching this movie go head to head? It would have been crazy. But we lost that because we were, you know, too critical on what they were doing. So they got rid of all the people that were working on that stuff, and they brought in new people. And you know, James Gunn is fantastic. He did great with Guardians of the Galaxy, but you know, we lost all of that, you know, of what we had established. And you know, some of the practices for DC wasn't, you know, the writing or people complaining. There was some things behind the scenes that I could go on at a later point, just about how they were treating people. You know, but we lost that, and then there was something else I was going to say about another property. Star Wars. Sorry.
Yeah.
Before I lose it again. For Star Wars, you know, another thing, like I was saying, you know, we just need to take a step back and look at what we have, because, you know, originally people hated the prequels, but now we regard the prequels as
better than the originals. Yeah,
some of the better movies, and people are like, the third.
Sure.
Revenge of the Sith is the best Star Wars movie we ever made, and originally people were hating on the prequels.
Yeah, like Hayden. There's that thing where Hayden Christensen comes out, and after years of being booed, he's finally cheered when he comes out for a convention. Yeah. Another thing too, real quick. Now that we've seen a saber bleed on screen, I think it's time that in that third movie, and I know it's not possible because they've already finished the third movie, but I think as they're having that final duel,
they bleed the lightsaber.
He bleeds the lightsaber while he's fighting Obi-Wan. I think that should happen, but
they could do it. So if you don't know, they've actually gone back to the originals, and they've done this with the prequels, and they've replaced things over time.
Oh, have they?
Like a lot.
Okay.
In the original prequels, or at least in Phantom, Yoda is actually just the puppet as he originally was in the original movies. But now if you go back and you watch it, like on Disney Plus, he's the new CGI Yoda.
Oh, really?
Instead, yeah.
I haven't gone back and watched any of that. I know Puppet Yoda. I'm very familiar with Puppet Yoda, but I have not seen CGI Yoda in the movies, so I guess I will have to go back and see those.
Yeah, so now he's CGI. Well, from episode 2 and 3, they had to make him CGI because there's no way they were going to do his fight scenes without him being CGI. But yeah, they went back into the first one and changed him from the puppet to CGI. So there's no reason why we couldn't go back and just change the color.
Bleed the crystal while he's doing the fight. I think it'd be crazy.
That would be crazy. Cool. Especially when they're holding him.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That would be fantastic. Scene. Oh my God. But yeah, Hayden Christensen, getting hate before, and now he came back in Ahsoka, and I'm one of these people, so I'm not dogging on them, but grown men were literally crying for joy. I've seen them on the internet. You can find them.
For
Dudes
sure.
are like damn near bawling because it was just amazing to see him back, and in the Clone Wars, no less. Like, oh,
there's even a common franchise that rarely ever gets hate unless it's from within their own group, but Pokemon.
Oh my God.
Totally never hated on whatsoever. People never hate on Pokemon. So Pokemon releases, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Gen 5. Gen 5 is now regarded as one of the best mainline series games possible.
Yeah. At first, yeah.
At first, it came out and people hated it because they were like, a trash bag?
A trash.
Ice cream cone? These aren't Pokemon. These are objects, right? And now I look at it and I'm like, dog, I was a kid. I was never hating. I was just like, yes, new Pokemon game, right?
For sure.
I fell in love with the trash bag. The trash bag is one of my favorites. I love Trubbish and Garbodor. There are still people to this day who are like, no, I could never. But I know secretly they go home and they're like, yeah, the garbage bag's pretty cool.
Yeah, he is pretty cool.
And like, they were so busy focused on hating on the ice cream cone and the trash bag and all these other things that were in there they didn't like the gears clinking, clink, clank, and whatnot, right? That they missed out on how great the stories in those games were too. So like,
I think that's a really good example too.
Like, there are things that you can be missing because you're too busy worried about hating them. Like, one of my favorite cards to play with now in Magic came from Universes Beyond or set. So, like, I started off as a one-ring hater, thought the card wasn't good. That was probably one of my favorite cards to play.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
There's plenty of things where, like, if you're too busy hating, you're actually just gonna miss something cool or something that you might actually end up enjoying.
And it was a Pokemon video that changed my perspective a lot too, especially about Pokemon, but about other things as well. And just kind of watching some of that old stuff. And then we'll move on to what the future looks like here. But there was a video I watched. It was just like a clips video, and it was talking trash, kind of like about the trash bag or like some of these new Pokemon. And they're like, "What is this?" You know?
Mhm.
And he's like, "You want to know what? You guys like Kanto, right? The original 151.
One of those is just a rat.
They're like, no, they were like, they just showed Voltorb.
That's
This
a ball.
is a Pokeball.
Yep. 100%.
You're gonna tell me that this is a bad design when you guys were just putting eyes on a Pokeball?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, that is a great take.
What
It's
does
so
he evolve
good.
into? Roll him over.
100%. You know what? Greatest take I've ever heard.
I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I have been humbled.
Yep. Yeah.
No longer.
Screw all these Gen 1ers who are like the trash bag stupid. You
Yeah.
have a Pokeball.
Yeah. You have a Pokeball.
Oh, another one too. Amoonguss. Sure, he's just a mushroom that has Pokeball hands. I love that little guy.
I love him too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like playing the game when he first comes out. Tangent, but playing the game when he first comes out, and he just looks like
He just looks like a Pokeball on the ground.
yeah. Hell yeah, I loved that, and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, that got me too. But then I hate Fungus's design just because he's too little for me. But Amoonguss is silly enough where I'm like, yeah. Also, have you ever put their names together? You ever?
Fungus among us.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. They, peak design, honestly. Not my favorite game, but it's up there. I really do love Gen 5. So.
But yeah, so we were kind of talking about the hate that things are receiving, and we're gonna see what happens here in the future. Harry Potter is gonna come out, and it's already getting hate because most of the hate is due to changing, the actors. And a real big part, and I don't know if you know this, is Snape is going to be black.
I get it.
I understand the hate to a point, but also it's like, we did the original story. If you want to watch the original story, just go watch that.
Yeah.
This is us taking creative freedoms and kind of telling more of that story, which at this point, it's just like, whatever. It's whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it. So like, if you don't like it, don't watch it,
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, so what do you think about the future here? Do you think we're going to continue to grow? I mean, nerds are everywhere at this point.
Oh, for sure.
When I met my wife, she had no interest in any nerd stuff. Didn't really play video games. Mm-hmm. Now plays a little video games, but plays D&D.
I was going to say, she's in your D&D session, isn't she?
Yeah, plays D&D once a week now.
Yeah, for the future, I think that, like, nerds, they already had their cult following. That cult following is never going anywhere. We'll see if this pop culture wave eventually dies out and people start going back to the way things were, where it's like, oh, you're a nerd, back in the locker, or you get a swirly. But I think overall, I think it's just we're coming to an age now where just things in general are more accepted, just even on a broader spectrum than just being a nerd.
Sure.
So I think the world is just changing in a way where you can just be more of yourself, and it's more commonly accepted. And like, sure, there's new hot button topics, and there's always gonna be new hot button topics, but a nerd is no longer that hot button topic, and it's finally okay to be like, you know what, I'm a nerd, this is who I am.
Hey.
We'll get there eventually with the rest of the stuff, but right now they're the hot button topics, and nerds, they're not going anywhere. The bandwagon ones, I hope they stay. I hope they keep liking being a nerd. I hope they continue to play their D&D, or if they're playing Pokemon, they play Pokemon, which having booming numbers. Everything's having booming numbers. Pokemon goodness. Especially. Oh my god, it's booming so much. And there's some parts that I hate about Pokemon, but I'm just gonna ignore those parts because otherwise I miss the rest of the Pokemon that I enjoy. So
fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's gonna continue to boom. I think D&D is gonna continue to boom. I hope we get another D&D movie. Honestly,
that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
They could either do them. They could do them MCU kind of style where it's like similar characters, or even just in the same world would be cool.
Sure.
Not necessarily the same characters.
And like, we've had Vox Machina, but like a D&D story with like maybe the named characters, like give me a one where Drizzt and the rest of his gang, that's a full animated series. Give me something like that,
That'd be sick.
So I think there's still room for them to go, and we could potentially even get more nerds even on the bandwagon.
Oh, yeah.
The Grandpa Jim can be a nerd now finally too. Lump him in there. So I think it's going forever. We're gonna have our cult obviously, but I think the bandwagon, it's either gonna fall off within like the next 2 years, or it's sticking forever.
Excellent, love it. I think we're gonna end on that note. I have one more question about it. I love what you had to say there so much. I think we're just gonna end it there. So thanks for joining us. This was our relaunch. We're back. Nerd Talks is back, and we're gonna keep talking nerd stuff. Don't don't forget to like, subscribe, follow. If you're on the audio version, we have the video version on YouTube.
Yeah, and you can see where his ratings were when he didn't describe them with his hands. He just said, this is here, and this is here, and then this is here.
I did do visual things with my hands that you will not be able to know about on the audio version. So, yeah, thanks for joining us.
Well, if they don't, they're getting a swirly. I just want to know that.
You heard it here. You're getting a swirly. Thanks for joining us, and have a good game.